Cool. So my name's Charlie, as it says there. Also, as it says there, this is a choose your own adventure presentation. There's going to be words on the screen. You're going to have to read them, shout out your answers. If somebody could read aloud to Boris, that'd be helpful. Oh, not even a chuckle. I guess he's not paying attention. Okay, so this is going to suck for the people watching the recording, just full disclosure. It's probably going to suck for some of you here too, but hopefully not. Okay, everybody know where we are?
Get lamp.
Okay, so there's a pen testing emergency and you need help. So luckily, you stumble out of the closet, and Relic, and Iron Geek, and Pure Hate are there. So who are you going to talk to? You got to pick one. Yell it out. That's the point. You have to yell it out. You have to read and yell.
Dave! Why is it always me? Dave! Really again.
You don't know if you're coming handy.
Anybody but me.
All right. So it's down to the last minute. You need to pick a pen tester. Do you pick Dave or do you pick me? That's me, by the way, if you forgot from 2 slides earlier.
The CEH should win.
I'm not really a CEH. All right. Who do you
Dave's
pick?
pen test comes with a free hug.
Dave.
Dave, of course.
I agree.
I don't like where this is going, by the way.
So the point is, like, all these great hackers get together, you know, and compare notes, then they do a lot of the same things. But I think the reason they do a lot of the same things is because they know a lot of the same things about how IT infrastructure is built and how it's broken. But the lousy pen testers, in my experience, don't know shit about IT, and they're going to continue to be lousy pen testers, even with the great guidance that comes out of the Penetration Testing Execution Standard. So I meant to preface this with, like, has anybody here not heard of PTES? Okay, so it's pentest-standard.org. So it's really good. It's a really good read, whether you're on offense or defense, and whether you agree with it or not, it is very interesting. All right, so like there's always going to be a bottom end to the pen testing market. So what do you all think? Like after the PTES is widely adopted, are those people going to continue to suck, or is there going to be a level playing field?
They're going to go away.
They're going to go away.
No more Nessus monkeys.
Okay. So the Nessus monkeys aren't going to adapt to the new world where they have to
No,
go
because
through all these
none of them
checks.
are technical. They know how to push buttons. Right? They click shit. No, I'm serious. Most of the Nessus monkeys are Big Four employees. They know how to click skin.
And the Big Four is just going to give up on pen testing, or they're going to hire hackers?
Hire people who are accredited to you by PTES, or they're just going to get out of business.
So what? I'm sorry, you said accredited about?
I think the PTES should start. I think the PTES should have some form of accreditation. That would start with ridiculous.
So like a certification, like to be a.
No. First, widely accepted, where if your organization isn't certified by the PTS organization,
Oh,
you
okay.
don't do pen tests.
The purpose of P-test, by the way, wasn't to tell people how to do pen tests. It was to give an adoption rate for standard methodologies around it that companies can actually leverage to identify what an actual pen test would be.
Sure.
So instead of actually having, you know, you have crappy pen testers, which may be new and inexperienced that are coming up in it, or you might have someone that's a seasoned pen tester, at least having the company to be able to say, hey, did they actually do certain things in order to validate that penetration test was successful was the overall design, I think.
Okay, Martin, you have a
I was
question?
actually going to say the exact same thing as Dave, is that I was under the impression that the P-test was much more geared towards the customers and the clients so that they would have something to gauge against whether they actually had a real live pen
Yeah,
test
whether
done.
They would know
If
what to
that's what
ask
they
for.
asked for, or if they had a vulnerability assessment done when they asked for a pen test or whatever that.
And that's what we focused heavy on. If you look at P-Test, you have the pre-engagement interactions, the reporting aspects, the reporting portions of it, and they're very detailed on what should be expected within both of those scoping phases, during the pre-engagement interactions, and what you should actually look for and ask for. And we actually give scenarios of what you should ask for as a business too. So that's a lot.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment on what they think the low end of the pen test market's going to look like after the widespread adoption of P-test? Okay. So Dave, of course, he's a set because it's awesome. And in just a few minutes, he owns all your shit. Oh,
Just a few minutes? I mean, come on, I'm in the seconds now.
so, in a few seconds, he owns all your shit. All right, sorry this cut off. So, all right, so what happens now? He's domain admin, he's got everything. So you ask, how does this impact the business? Or you say, Dan.
Yeah, you gotta read the big picture.
Yeah, but this all has to do with back what Dave was talking about, the scoping of the job, because if the job was scoped to be goal-oriented, to actually extract some information from the company, then no, this wouldn't have been a pen test. But if the goal was to get domain admin, then yeah, he's done.
But
This
well,
is
my,
like-
my an emergency though. It was
What-
just an emergency. You got a call. And
One thing I'd always say though is it's never been my goal to get domain admin. I've never done a pen test where my goal is to get domain admin, period, ever. It's always to impact the organization, impact the business, to actually show what attacker could do.
Right, but what I'm saying is that sometimes we've had clients
Well-
say that in their eyes, their goal would be
Domain admin's the
domain
end.
I just want the CEO to start his phone number.
What was that?
I just want the CEO to start his phone number.
Stalk her on Facebook for that.
have you seen the CEO?
All right.
But she's rich.
So I would say,
Yeah,
can you show me how this
that's
impacts the
that's
business?
methodology.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, we've hit a dead end. We gotta go back. All right. So, like, if you're a pen tester and you're talking to an entrepreneur, somebody who founded a company, like, by the time they're to the point where they're ready to stroke a check for the pen test, they've survived some long odds just to get there. Anywhere between like a 50 to 90% chance of that business failing in the first few years, depending on whose numbers you believe. And similarly, like if you're talking to a CEO, somebody who is taking over an established business, if they don't increase the profitability of the organization within the first few years, they're going to have that same fate of just being gone. So, like, to people like us that are passionate about security, it's hard to see how people like cannot be passionate about it. But essentially, they're paying you to worry about it, is my supposition, and they're just not going to care. Nothing you can tell them, nothing you can show them is going to make them care, because this is part of the myriad of problems that they experience in running a business, and they want to pay you to do your best to make it go away. So what do you all think? Do business people need to care about the threats and the
Yeah, because
security
when
of the
you're scoping,
organization?
you're not, if during your scoping, if you sell them a pen test, and they come back with an IP address, that's not a pen test, that's a BA.
Well, but I kind of understand where he's going with this. Is listen, let's just take me as an example, all right? My CFO doesn't care about a specific vulnerability.
No, you're right.
He-
But you guys about an asset, sir.
But he trusts me to make decisions in funding and how to actually, implement and fix a, security problem. So a pen test for me is a way to identify what exposures I might have and where I need to focus my efforts on. And specifically, if you look at what we're trying to do in security, it's making sure that the business can continue to generate revenue. That's
Exactly.
it's the only reason why we're doing security.
Exactly.
Without
Exactly.
a business, you're not going to have
Like,
anything.
When someone's scoping, when someone comes to you and sells a pen test, right? This for you, for your business, it would be the source code for the ATM machines. That's the goal of my pen test.
Depending on what I want to get out of it.
Agreed,
yes.
agreed. I'm saying if that was the goal, getting domain admin, okay, big deal.
Right.
That's where I'm going.
But a lot of the companies are doing pen tests just to get a box check for an audit.
And that's
Which
why,
is a vulnerability assessment. That's the whole point of
And that's
PTS.
why-
Pen test though too.
well, pen test, and that's the reason why P-test was designed, because if you look at, like, for example, look at, and I'm not ragging compliance, okay, whatever. Compliance serves its purpose in security. If you look at PCI specifically states out OWASP, and then you have to conform to the OWASP top 10, right? It says nothing about penetration testing. It says you have to have penetration testing done by a reputable company. It doesn't say what you need to do in that penetration test. So it is, in 90% of the time, they're vulnerability scans with,
Yep.
validation testing with probably no push.
They got a box check for their audit.
Exactly right. And that's, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what the company wants to do as far as securing the organization. But ultimately, it hurts security and doesn't really do any good.
I think most people are gonna pay, well, this guy's gonna do a great job for 50K, but that guy's gonna check my box for $10.
And that's another reason why P-Test was designed, because if you get companies that are smart, you actually have security people in there that at least sit on the selection process of an organization. They say, well, hey, this is everything that we're doing and it's listed here, versus, hey, this is what we're doing and it's listed here.
Yeah.
There's a completely difference of scope. It'd be like, going with some of the big 5 accounting firms versus someone out of his house. You're not gonna hire somebody out of his house to do your financials if you're a Fortune 100 company. It's a completely different mindset, and we just haven't hit that maturity model in security.
I don't know, is it possible to write a report that a business person is going to care about? Like, can you scope the pen test in a way that there's a report at the end that somebody who's not an IT manager or even...
Yes.
Yeah,
of course.
absolutely.
Yes.
If you can make it resonate with them, yes. If I can say I can take down this entire customer environment and lose an X amount of revenue per day if we had a targeted attack, then it will resonate with them. And you don't have to talk about exposure. You never talk about a vulnerability. You never talk about a specific
Yeah, that goes to your
attack.
technical
It's the
staff.
Ponymon Institute model, right?
That goes to your technical
X
staff,
dollars a
your
record
executives.
times how
You have to look
many
at
records.
at business folks as looking at risk and what's the probability that this can actually happen, first of all, and second is it going to negatively impact my organization, my business? And no person in any type of business role is going to completely ignore something that's going to completely down their entire organization.
But can a pen tester know what the probability that, like, if they find a path in, can they predict, like, what the odds are that an attacker is going to
The odds
find
don't
that
matter.
exploit?
The odds don't matter. It's an independent roll of the die.
No, it's not that. It's not
Right.
that.
It is.
To do proper threat modeling, an external pen tester is not going to be able to give you a full risk assessment to do threat modeling because they don't know the probability. They don't know the probability. but there are
And I would
standards.
argue that probability is bullshit anyway, because
Well, yeah, but
you
you
never
can't say
know.
that to GRC folks. You can't say that to GRC folks.
Right. But what I would state though is you have different varying levels of risk that you can equate to a specific vulnerability. Like, for example, if I pop a completely open web application that has SQL injection on a front-facing website, on their externally facing website, there's a good chance it's probably going to be popped. Now, if I find something internally, okay, well,
If it takes you,
is someone
some
gonna?
time to get to that, yeah, the probability is less.
What level of assurance do you want from a specific attack?
Instead of probability, we should be talking ease of exploitation.
Absolutely.
It is. It's
No
totally
question
easy
about it.
exploitation.
No question about it.
Did anybody else want to chime in here?
Where's Raph? Does anybody want to get Raph on the phone?
What's that?
Anybody want to call Raph Loss? Just saying.
I'll get to that.
All right, so Dave owned all your shit in seconds, and so how did he get it? Like, how did he get there so fast? If you had to pick one of these three, what do you pick?
Security wasn't a priority in the business.
The IT team lacked the
Lacked the
skills
skills
needed to
needed to
build
build
defensible infrastructure.
People clicking.
Security's not a priority.
Well, that's the result of security.
Priority.
Stop clicking shit. Stop clicking shit.
Oh, he's in another dead end. Okay.
Then I guess security wasn't a priority.
Okay, so, like, if, the point of your pen test is to show how IT guys have fucked up, I think, like, the days of that are numbered, because it's getting easier and easier to build defensible infrastructure. And ultimately, it's not a sustainable model to have one group of people build stuff up, another group of people knock it down, and to continually, like, run this process over again.
But see, that's the
That's
wrong mindset. We're not trying to show how they fucked up. We're trying to help them.
Well, now
Build
mine's
their-
trying to show them how they.
Yeah, the past is the past. We need to start building a better future.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I'll say about that though is,
That's
if you go back to your previous one, if you can do that, I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
You go back to your previous one, the IT team lacked. Go
Oh,
forward.
sorry.
That team lacked the skills needed to build defensive infrastructure. And the reason I say that is applicable is because IT people don't have the skills to build a defensible infrastructure.
I mean, my point is, I think it's getting easier.
That's
like,
us.
it's easier.
That's our job. I don't know how to keep I don't know how to keep a multi-redundant hot site that, if something fails, it fails over to another site, or how to best configure, an IS web server so that it's redundant, load balanced with, different certificates. Who knows? Whatever. I'm not an IT guy. I'm a security guy.
But doesn't keeping the IT folks and the security folks separate the same thing as patching a vulnerability? Is usually from two different sources. Shouldn't the IT guys also be security guys, so that it's built into it from day one and not thrown on top of it?
No, IT guys should have security awareness, like they
Yes.
should know the basics, but they shouldn't.
Because I do think that the security guy can do everything the IT guy does better.
Yes, because we can.
So why not
because
just
we
make
have to
everybody
reverse
security
engineer,
guys to be done?
right?
But I don't think a security guy can do as good of a job as a person in IT. I don't think that's the case.
I agree.
It's an individual focus. It'd be like saying a web developer can also do IT. It's usually not the case. They're focused. Their individual view is development. That's how they become subject matter experts in those individual areas. For us, our areas are security. I don't know IT well. I mean, I used to do it probably 10 years ago, but I don't do it anymore, and nor would I claim to be anywhere near what my IT shop is.
Agree, but we have the basics across all the IT infrastructure, because we need to do our jobs.
Yeah,
I mean, the basics,
Yeah,
sure.
okay, security.
Yeah, we might not be able, as Dave said, there's no way I'm gonna be able to configure an HA pair.
Exactly.
But I can break it.
But I mean, in a lot of cases in environments that I've been in, it was stupid shit that got me in. Blank SQL Server passwords, SA.
And that's awareness.
Exactly, awareness. If the business up front said, you must give a shit about security before this goes live, and you must get sign off that you have given a shit about security before it goes live. I'd say
But-
85%.
But that happens when you
I've
trace
thought
back
that
security
goes
to affecting their bottom line.
Yeah, but so if you go into a company and get in from a blank SA password, I mean, whose fault is it? The IT department or the security department?
Who knows, right? Who put the
No, who's
box
ultimately
in?
responsible?
Yeah, who's ultimately responsible?
Did they get sign off that someone had gone through and looked for a minimum set of security requirements before the box went live?
But I think what you guys are talking about are two separate folds, because you're looking at a maturity model of an organization's security. If that weak SA password was there and you have a mature security program, well, obviously something fell through the cracks on where they're able to implement something that didn't go through proper change control and vetting of the security team. Or if you don't have a mature security program, no one even looked at that yet because there's no process in place. Security isn't sitting on the change advisory board or the change control board to be able to approve different things and review it. Or they're not doing proper pen testing.
Or they're not even doing proper change control.
I guess the lack of a better term for me, an ideal security company would be one that IT and security are like this. They're completely ingrained with each other, and it's a very supportive role. And luckily, I've been blessed with that where I'm at, where I'm very heavily involved in every aspect of IT. And we're best friends. It's a relationship where IT and security are best friends because we enhance each other. So.
Well, you have to be, but I think the whole enabling the business and maintaining uptime, those two roles are being intertwined now. They were never intertwined before.
What are your thoughts?
What are my thoughts?
You're the one up there.
The only person I hear from is the speaker.
So my thoughts are, it's getting easier to build, like, your hood's being gentrified. If you're just there, like, I'm gonna show you all the ways that I'm gonna break this stuff that you just built. It's because it's getting easier to build secure infrastructure. And 10 years from now, it's gonna be considered a fundamental IT skill to know about these things that we take, for granted, like, oh, you can't have blank SA passwords. Like, I think 10 years from now, you're not gonna stumble across a DBA or a server.
No, in a
admin
mature organization, you already don't stumble that shit.
That happens,
Baseline.
then
You have
we
to
did our
follow the
job.
baseline.
That's
You
a
can't
whole
go through
absolutely.
it. You can't go
That's
through QA and
what
change
we
management
want.
until someone approves that baseline. In some organizations, that's there already.
We do about Samsung.
Sit back and
10
years
ago.
I hope so.
I'm waiting for
Sites
it.
are going live today.
I said the same thing about SQL.
Yeah, SQLi, we talked about SQLi in '97.
So I do
13
think,
years old.
I do think Dave's right though. Every organization is different in where they're at with security or maturity, as he puts it, or whatever. Every company's different.
So where is it gonna be 10 years from now?
The
Is it
same.
the exact same?
SQLi
The
still gonna be
same
top
shit.
10.
So the IT people aren't gonna be any more aware of secure configurations?
No,
It's not about
That's
that.
why-
It's not about that. It's about what type of focus the individual company puts. Some companies are obviously going to mature and adopt this P-test thing and get into it, and some companies are going to blow it off and say that's a bunch of dumb hackers that made up some bullshit so they can get a big paycheck.
That's why
I
someone.
mean, it's gonna be the same no matter what.
Wait, so how do I get that big paycheck? I'm willing to change the slides right now.
Accubot Labs is hiring.
That's why some of the smarter organizations are
He said big
focusing on
paycheck.
layer 8.
Well, I'm sorry, what was that? I missed it.
Some of the smarter organizations are starting to focus on layer 8 versus layer 1 through 7 because it's really all about the human element. SE org and everybody else in that space will tell you, it doesn't matter how strong your technical controls are, if you can break a human in 30 seconds, then you're in and you got a squishy gooey center.
And you always go after the weakest link.
That's right. Well, that's a perfect segue, because like my next point, like, the things that I think are wrong, some ideas about what the future is, but I think ultimately the future is, yeah, the social engineering, like you hear Dave talk about SET, the Java applet exploits his favor. It's not really exploiting a vulnerability, it's just getting people to click shit, clicking shit.
Stop clicking shit.
And like, they aren't just anecdotes.
Two things
you
can
know.
stop Dave: not clicking shit and Microsoft Security Essentials, apparently.
You know that pisses me off, right?
So this is last week or the week before the Microsoft Security Intelligence Report. So 44.8% of malware spreads through people clicking shit. And it's more popular than dumping stuff on shares, dumping stuff on USB drives, like remote code execution, all of those things.
How come
People
SET's
clicking
not on
shit.
that graph?
Yeah, we're set at it.
Where's SET at on that graph?
That's probably.
Well, that's the clicking shit. That's right.
Oh, that's the 48%?
Yeah. I mean, if we could break that up, like Dave Kennedy's probably like that much.
And the other's porn.
Yeah, but how do you keep them from clicking shit if that's their job? If you send a resume to an HR person.
Security awareness.
Yeah, but it's their job to open up that PDF file.
No, but see, like defense is getting better in that regard. Like the cutting edge defense there is like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm not sure awareness is ever going to get to a certain level, okay? I got emailed from an academic security branch for giving a master's in information security, a PDF with like no title, no content, and it's like, okay, I wonder what the hell this is. This is fishy as hell. It ended up being completely legitimate, but these people still would send out something that looks incredibly like a malware attack, and they don't even realize it.
So that's maybe where the reputation-based controls come into play.
Yeah, so that's one. The
Weapon
sandbox
trust is a good start.
Yeah, it complements the social awareness.
So you're talking, yeah, people have been talking about that game with the CAs as well, right?
I mean, you can't have 100% success. You'll never be 100% secure.
It's all about mitigating risk.
You got to mitigate it once you detect it and keep it
It's all about
isolated
mitigating and
and
reducing,
contained.
mitigating risk and reducing exposure. That's all it is.
Maybe if you put everything in the cloud.
Wow.
I mean,
Let's
the
not go
trust stuff is
there.
already.
He said
I hear enough at work.
Oh, that's right, you guys over here.
Put it in the cloud.
The business has to define the level of risk that they can accept, and most businesses haven't done that. They don't know what they can accept.
Well, they haven't even got their classification yet, right? We're brought in to do pen tests, and these assholes haven't even classified data yet.
Right. It's like, what are your crown jewels? I don't know.
I don't know I don't know what you can take today that will take me out of business.
There's also the financial aspect that not only they're paying for the pen test, but once they get the report,
They're paying for the pen test so they can get cyber insurance.
so that once they know what needs to be done, it's a matter of how much capital they have to institute it within what period of time
Agreed.
versus how much
Agreed.
money they're looking at for a
Very
possible
very,
breach or
so
very
we all know every company can get popped, right?
Yeah.
90% of those is low hanging fruit.
But nobody wants to spend any damn money.
But it's the easy shit.
Click and shit.
Look at shit.
You can just, everybody can just yell out. It doesn't
So
matter.
Dave, raise your hand.
I spent the past 15 years doing this type of stuff in the Department of Defense, and I'm convinced that the Department of Defense has close to zero talent in this from this aspect. They got no security guys. They contract a lot. But
Yeah, we hear that a
wearing
lot.
a uniform, there are not very many guys that know how to do security stuff that are wearing uniforms in the Department of Defense. But somehow their networks are 10 times stronger than any of the ones I've seen in the private sector.
Did you see that UAV with the keylogger?
Yeah, pretty bad. the reason being is because they have punitive regulation that says you have to be at a certain level, or guess what? We shut your network down. At what point do we get to that level where if a company does not function at a certain level of security, they do not get to connect and they lose their customers because they don't have any access.
Who decides? Is the internet? Does the internet service provider decide to disconnect you, or is?
That's the key.
You know why financials don't give a shit? You know why financials don't care about vulnerabilities? Because they can just pay fines.
Oh, yeah.
They'll just pay a fine. Oh, great. Yeah. Okay. This
What
is
if
fine.
it's not
Awesome.
a
Let's pay
fine?
for
What
it.
if it's not a fine? What if, guess what? You no longer can serve your customers. Find a new way to do it.
Capitalism.
Good luck.
Capitalism.
Yeah, it's bad.
But look at, okay, so I don't want to get into the whole wiki Assange thing, right? But look at Mavic. He walked into a government facility, which he had access to, and walked out with data which he shouldn't have had access to. He shouldn't have been able to walk out of the building with.
Right.
Government's not as secure as you're making it out to be.
Oh,
That's a problem
I'm
many
definitely
companies
not
have.
saying that the DoD doesn't.
So who
have
do we
knowledge.
blame for that?
But what I'm saying is, it seems to be better off.
Figured it out.
You did?
Head artillery running with blocking.
Okay, so back to the layer 8 stuff.
Sorry.
No, oh, this is good conversation. So,
layer 8 problem?
so the layer 8 stuff, you're worried about people clicking shit. The defense gets better, though people's awareness gets better slightly over time. So like what happens down the road where people have to abuse this web of trust, the trust between people, that's between two people or between a person and a corporation or between two corporations. Like right now, we're in a model where pen testers can sort of emulate the activity of hackers. But once hackers are, almost exclusively focused on abusing this trust, like, it's too hard to get into Diebold, and it's, Dave's too savvy to fish, but some of his friends, I can pop his Gmail account, reply to a message, get something in his inbox that maybe gets past all of the, the improved defense, gets past his just natural defense. So what does a pen tester do then? Because they can't cross that line, pop third parties, pop their friends, do all this OSN stuff that we've heard so much about this weekend, and bring unrelated people that are tangentially involved in your security into that actual pen test.
Well, I think what you did is you used it in a hypothetical example, right? Security, it was never designed to be 100% protection,
Yeah.
because security will never be a condom.
Yeah.
Right? It never will be, because there's nothing that we can do in order to secure organizations 100%. But what you have to look at is, can you at least withstand a certain level of attack? And if something does slip through, do you have the capabilities to actually detect that and actually respond to it? So if you look at social engineering attacks, yes, they've been around for 30 years and we're still talking about it.
But they'll always be there. That's one of the things that'll always be.
There's nothing we can do about it. I mean, let me rephrase it. Coupling education awareness of giving your associates at least the best chance to survive those type of attacks, and coupling technologies on top of it to at least help out, you're better than 90% of the people out there.
So,
right?
I mean, so what do you do if you're a pen tester and you go to an organization, you show them all the ways that you found to get in, they plug all those holes, and you come back and your only option left is to exploit that web of trust. How do you do that? Or do you just say, you don't need pen testing services anymore?
There's always going to be an avenue to break in. It's just what your level of appetite is. And so I would say if you hit your bar of where you want to be, which I haven't found a company that's had that yet, you've hit the bar that you want to be at, then great. You just get someone in to check to make sure that you're still doing the level of effort that you want and you're doing everything properly. That's what pen testers design to do, is to check people, to get an outside view of how your security program is doing and how you can actually, make sure that you're still keeping up to date. Because, if I'm at this place and I just sit there and I just ride that, I'm going to eventually go down if I don't have a proper security program in place. And so 2 years from now, I'm going to get hacked again. So you have to look at it from a retrospect of why you're doing a pen test. And the reason why you're doing a pen test is to check your security program and find out where it's failing and how you can actually fix your systemic issues.
So, but like, do you think we'll get to a point where most places have fixed those systemic issues? I mean, every place is still going to
Technology evolves daily.
Well,
you could be.
I would say yes. I would say yes, you can. I would say a company can get to an appetite level that is sufficient for them.
Yes, but it's constantly changing, constantly evolving.
But
it's something where you said the fall off.
But what I mean with that though is you get to a maturity model to where you can handle new technology coming in. You have proper controls in place. You have a maturity model in security that can actually handle new changes in technology. Yeah. And yes, you'd still maintain that level of, well, you might fluctuate a bit, but you'd still go up and down, but you still have a relatively decent program going into place. So yes, I think you can absolutely hit that.
So what happens to pen testers in 10 years or 20 years? Are you just going after a less mature organization, or you're compliance guys at that point?
We're the next CSOs.
Yeah. You want to start right now? That was the perfect segue.
10 years
Not me.
Pen tester's job has always been to model the threats.
I'll be the
That,
custodian of pen testing.
if you're going to measure risk is vulnerability, right, times threat.
Yeah, but my point is that threat is going to change to the point where you can't follow it anymore because you have to exploit people that you can't.
We're there now,
Ethically.
right? I mean,
Sure.
I have not had the pleasure of having a penetration test where included in the scope was
picking up cinder block, throwing it through the window of the building, and walking out with the laptops. But that's a threat that's there. So I mean,
You need to talk to Nickerson.
we're there now. You can't. Well, I have never had the pleasure of doing it. I'm sure Chris and others perhaps have. But I mean, there's always things that we can't do that the people who don't have ethical boundaries can do. But it's not to say that there isn't. If there's never a threat, then you're never going to be able to measure your risk.
Well, so how do you prioritize those things? Because like, if what you're doing is not related in any way to what the actual Black Hats are doing, then what's the value of what you're doing?
Well, the Black Hats are exploiting internal developed code and external developed known vulnerabilities.
No, what he's saying is like, I can pretend to be Dave's wife and send Dave an email and exploit that. But as part of a pen test, that's not in your rules of engagement, right? Because that's a third party.
Right. What
Yeah,
I'm
but
saying,
what is that going to get you?
What do you mean,
I
what's that
mean,
gonna get
Dave's
you?
wife doesn't work.
Well,
at
whatever.
Penn.
You know.
I don't understand where that. I just don't.
You know what I mean, right?
That's
Explain
not
the
Powerade.
trust of a vendor, like a third-party vendor. Your partners with Verizon. I can't go to Verizon, break into them to get to you as a.
Well,
as a
sure,
pen
but we all know those threats exist. So, like, if you
Exactly.
go back to the cinder block through the window, I know that somebody can throw a cinder block through my window. I do not have to hire Chris Nickerson to prove that. So, from that mindset, I'll look at my
would be fun,
laptops
though.
and computers and workstations, and I say, well, what if somebody threw a
accepted that
cinder?
risk.
You know, what if somebody
That'd
threw
be
a
up on
cinder
YouTube.
block through the window? How do I secure these computers so that if somebody walks off with them, it's okay?
But
Yeah,
couldn't
because
all
you-
of pen testing
you
be that
think
what if
that's part of your
exercise?
threat model.
Like, couldn't you just walk into a place and talk to the admins and understand their controls and not actually do exploitation?
No,
No, because
because
they have to believe
No.
it.
it's validation of testing. So if you have an admin that says he does X, 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 and X, and he doesn't do that, and you have that hole there, your risk assessment or your interview of that person is never going to identify that. And that's why validation testing is so important. In order to get so again, it goes back to a maturity model of an organization. So generally what you would do if you want to find a maturity model of an organization is you would do a risk assessment on them over 20 different areas of security and find out what they think they're doing. And then you couple validation and testing on top of that to actually prove what they're doing and find out where the actual gaps of that overall process is at and then fix those. So, I mean, no, interviews don't do anything when it comes to actually doing validation testing to find those exposures.
I submit that businesses will hang themselves by telling you during your interview that they are doing A, B, and C, and then they will limit the scope of your validation and testing so that on paper it looks like they're doing that to meet their GRC requirements, but in reality, 90% of their organization.
Yeah, because that's what they do now, right? Here's these 5 IP addresses you can hit.
It would be like a financial control analyst saying that they do everything proper on the books and then not doing any type of audit whatsoever to make sure that they comply to state and regulatory requirements. It doesn't happen.
A lot. In our engagements, we see that.
It doesn't happen.
Done whatever, and they've honestly tried. I've seen a ton of people that have misconfigured IDS and IPS. Right? They put all their internal and external controls in place. They just screwed up.
Because they bought shit.
Yeah, they plugged shit in the wrong ports. They didn't click shit they were supposed to click, but they clicked other things they weren't supposed to, whatever. Right? And so they're going to sit there and they're going to say, yes, I did this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And they believe it. They know they did. They walked through it themselves personally, right? And they did, but not until I come in and test it, right? Then I found out they actually broke shit.
And listen, I'll be honest with you. If somehow someone decides a different way of doing security that doesn't involve penetration testing, then amen. Okay, we got a different way of finding how to secure organization. There is nothing out there that can actually prove different exposures that an attack would actually do. So if someday we come up with a magic pill, a new product that one of the vendors come out with that somehow identifies all of our exposures and protects us against apt and DLP and everything else out there, then amen. Then that means I got an easier job. I mean, security is always going to be there. I mean, as pen testers, we have a very unique view of everything and how those things operate, how they communicate, how to secure them. It's not limited to just hacking. We have a completely defensive side that we can do as well. So let's find it. Someone hasn't found it. I'll quit pen testing today. Not really.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid, Dave.
That was a lie. I'm sorry.
There's no amount of blinky lights that can take those out.
Okay. So a vote, let's hear it. There's no room for ambivalence. You have to pick that you love it or fuck it.
Love it. Love it.
Fuck it.
The
Make
love it.
sweet,
We'll see
sweet
you at the
love to
parking
it.
lot, buddy.
All right. I didn't win.
what you're doing is really necessary. I mean, you gotta have the checks and balances in place to make sure that this is not just a bunch of people following the Pied Piper. I mean,
Trolling, is that?
Listen, when I read the title, I didn't read the description or anything like that, and I welcome any type of criticism or scrutiny because you know what? That's what makes it better.
Exactly.
If Microsoft Security Essentials stops you.
Shut up.
That's not even cool.
All right, I'm not giving up the podium until Dave signs my book. So if you guys want to see the next talk,
Go, Dave, sign.
As part of the
there a man hug?
yeah, definitely a hug. That's what I was
Yeah,
gonna
kick
say.
you up, give you a
I'll give
big
him a
man
hug.
hug.
The hug.
No, come on.
You gave him the hip.
Crickets. That wasn't uncomfortable enough at all.
No, not at all. That was an awesome talk.
thank you.
Very good.
Good job.
Give me about 5 minutes to fix something that's broken.